house twice.
Hello.
Welcome to the Doomsday Roundtable. We've got a full house today. There's me, there's Jay, there's Chris, there's Jim, there's Pat, there's Mikey, and there's no one new because she said we had to have subtitles. So today is episode 5. We're talking about, can we all agree that a CME hitting the Earth, like the Carrington event, is something that is going to happen eventually. And if it were to happen this year, do you have a plan? Do you think most of the world would go dark? And I guess, do you think those people who live in third world countries and or already live without these things would do better than the United States or non-third world countries? People who are insanely reliant on electricity.
First world countries.
Yes, first world. Is there a second world country?
Yeah.
What is second world countries?
Like Ireland or maybe Philippines.
Okay, so Ireland's like the cool end.
Yeah, like they have some industrialized areas, but they also have some poor areas, but they're not first world necessarily.
Oh, okay.
Maybe Iceland, I think, where they have education and stuff, but they don't have a lot of industry.
So they're better.
I
mean,
they would actually be in a pretty good position, I think, to do well.
Okay, so do we agree that something like the Carrington event, a CME, I'm not talking EMP, I'm not talking enemies, I'm talking natural event, that a CME is eventually going to happen?
In the realm of time? Yeah.
Well, there's a historical record of,
1859, the Carrington event. So we know it's happened once.
Right. Well, it's happened a few times,
yeah.
but to that extent.
Yeah, to that extent. And I was just reading about a guy, Nick Hodgson, was talking that, according to him, NASA says that there is a 12% chance of a CME hitting every 10 years. So
it seems awfully high when you think of 360 degrees of the Earth's circumference and 360 degrees of the sun's circumference. You got to have the right, Earth's got to be in the right spot for the sun to fire one at us, and we're in the target zone.
Well, I think we see glancing blows pretty regularly because you're seeing every time you see Aurora Borealis, that's basically a glancing blow, right?
it's like a miniature war, yeah.
Right.
And they do large.
Yeah, but that's beautiful and not devastating.
Yeah, it's not designed to take you out.
Yeah, right.
Oh, how pretty clean.
Yeah.
And we've seen really big ones happen. They just were pointed in different directions.
Right, they just had that one that was pointed in the opposite direction. So
Right.
The UK Express.com, the Doomsayers, they're just like the National Enquirer of rags.
I think we touched on it before just a few years ago, 2012.
Yeah.
2012, we missed one that would have been devastating by 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
We were just, the sun went boom and the earth went.
Right.
Yeah.
I just made this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So we're going to agree that eventually.
I mean, no. I mean,
You mean no, because
There's
we've got
always
to-
that 4 out of 5 dentists, so you got to be that.
right. There's got to be somebody, right? Somebody's got to say no.
There's one guy in every round.
Yeah.
Okay, and if it were to happen within the next year, do you think, if it was to happen to that extent, as Carrington event, do you think the whole world would go dark?
Maybe not the whole world. I don't know. I mean,
third world country would be like, didn't notice.
right. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, like if you're in the jungle and you've been doing the same things the same way for, hundreds, thousands of years, you don't care. I mean, you're like, long
So there are parts of the
But
world.
they're already dark then.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Parts of
Yeah,
the world wouldn't
that's
even know
the
what the
thing.
hell has happened. They might go,
Right.
it's our turn now, kind of like a cockroach.
Right.
No.
So I think that in the industrialized world,
Oh, yeah.
they're dark. But I think that the smaller places around the world, if you happen to be on the right side of the globe, in the right position, right place, you may not notice it. You might just think it's some sort of strange electrical anomaly that just happened in the 1 or 2 power wires that cross your island or something.
right?
So it may not be catastrophic to you. You may not even realize it.
That's a good point I hadn't even thought of. So if you are a little island and you have your own power source, then you probably can recover from this a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Especially if you're on the other side of the hit. As the Earth's spinning and rotating.
Right, but something like the Carrington event, that went over the globe to the point where even in the Falklands they could see the Aurora Borealis.
Oh.
So, they were seeing it up and down. So something like that. And then really the only thing we had then was telegraph.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, and it trashed it.
Yeah, but was it the Aurora Borealis or the Aurora Australis that they were seeing because the Falkland Islands was so far south?
No, it was from the CME that hit. So it would technically be Aurora Borealis.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think if you are in the right part of the world, a country like, say, Philippines, that might now have lots of independent power sources, like their own little solar power grids here and there, they might be able to recover well enough if they're facing the right direction. Or if you're the other side of the southern half of the planet, and you're somewhere in South America and you have to, far enough up into the Andes or something like that, I would think that you would be not so affected and be able to power up again pretty quickly. But I think the Western world, as we like to think of it, I think there'd be such a chain reaction. The grid would go down and we'd have a really hard time getting it back up just because we're stumbling over our own feet.
Right. The amount of chaos.
Yeah, just the chaos in itself would prohibit us from starting up again as people start to fight for food and other stuff. The process of rebuilding our industry would be hard.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with that. So in that regard, when we move to the third world countries and we start looking at them, or the second world countries even, didn't even think about that. Do you feel like they'd be better off?
Well, I think the second world countries will just be like, no big deal. We'll just do what we did last year, because they're already they're behind already.
Right. I don't
So-
think they'd be in a massive panic.
Yeah.
Oh,
They would just be like, oh,
and the second world country's
Yeah,
population
right.
is, and the second world country's population isn't going to be that dense.
Right.
right. That's
Yeah.
another
Third
thing.
world country is going to be that dense.
Yeah.
I mean, you can still consider most of India to be a third world country, but they also have a nuke, multiple nukes. But at the same time, they're it's not as industrialized as a country as you would think, even though they've got a populace that is everywhere.
They do have lots of people, and a lot of those people live in a very poor state. I was just hearing that their average lifespan is something a little bit more than 50 years old, but they still have a lot of people who live like us, well into their 90s. They have masses of people out there who are just not local to, good power sources and things of that sort. So I think places like India some of them wouldn't really notice. The cities and things like that, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I think they'd notice as soon as some of the aid, maybe not India, but some of the other ones, from something you had said before, that they might notice as soon as their aid stops coming.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of aid from us, you mean? Like, right. I think that would affect a lot of the world.
Right, because I think places like us, Britain, France, Russia, I think that we all might be in the same boat. These places who are trying to do other things, and even China. Could you imagine that?
Yeah.
With all those people who are living in those confined, how much disease is going to run rampant there without flowing water,
Right.
and electricity?
Yeah. Because they live on top of each other. Like,
Yeah.
literally.
They've also got a solid amount of pollution that they can't deal with that they've already generated. So I ain't going to be any better.
Yeah,
The idea is to push it further down the river and see what happens next.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of third world countries are also relying on machinery such as diesel trucks. These trucks that have years of them will come to a screeching halt. So a lot of the third world countries you'll start to see have serious, dire issues. They might not be relying necessarily on an electrical grid, but they are relying on trucks that require electric power to operate said vehicles. So in a mass solar flare, you're literally halting their only lifeline to the outside world, or from the outside world. You'll see a lot of third world countries just not fare very well because even third world countries have become reliant in some way, shape, or form on technology. Now, if you're talking about somewhere out in like South Sudan, Africa, places like that, they might do the same as they always did.
Yeah, I mean, my donkey didn't fall over when the electricity went out.
But I mean, if you see places like Haiti, for example, Haiti, believe it or not, they still rely on food trucks and food supplies from the outside world. If that stops coming, Haiti's screwed.
Right.
They're screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And same thing with, they're going to have a lot of first world problems at that point. It really puts them up the playing field. I think it's ultimately they're not as prepared for events like this. They don't have food reserves. They don't have anything like that. They're going to run out of them quick.
Just so reliant on everybody else. That's what
Exactly.
it really comes down to. I mean, it's
Really what it is.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, technology is also provided not only an aid to them, but in this case, a vast hindrance because once technology just fries, then there's
Well, they won't have any access to their natural resources that they've been plundering for decades. If you don't have the technology to get to it anymore, or a way of selling it or transporting it or what have you, the money dries up, aid dries up, you dry up.
Okay, so I'm gonna throw a spin in here. Upset you because you are my notebook guy.
Oh,
So my spin here is, okay, so we have an idea that the third world countries, in some places, like those small tribes, it's just every day as normal. They may not even know.
why is everybody freaking out? I mean,
Right. They're coming here for help, and we just got
Yeah.
Ebola. That's all we've got.
Yeah.
that's all we can offer.
That's all we've got. We've got Ebola. But okay, so we're going to come back into these countries where we are so amazingly reliant. Now I'm thinking about things that can be, because we're agreeing that something like this is eventually going to happen. So it's not a if technology fails, it's a when technology fails. So how difficult, if you were a small scale, like say you wanted to go, we'll say state, not state by state, that might be too large, county by county, or what do they call them? They're not counties in
parishes.
yeah,
There,
parishes.
Louisiana.
Right. If you went place by place like that, and you said, okay, we are going to redo our power to protect our part of the grid, and to be able to cut off from the rest of it, because we know that the grid is like water. So when one part goes, the rest of it's screwed.
Yeah.
How difficult and how time consuming do you think that would really be in regards of a project to happen now?
I'm not really seeing that one because there's so much. The reason why you've got power generating stations so far and wide is because it's not cost effective to have it in your backyard. You've got a coal-fired plant, you've got a hydroelectric plant, you've got, nuclear plant. Granted, they're trying to pull back and go, okay, everybody's got the little solar arrays and everything like that. You're trying to be off the grid and stuff like that. But I don't think county to county you would even work that because, say where we are, we've got a nuclear power plant, but those transmission lines go far afield.
Right.
I don't see a nuclear power station being pulled back online if everything gets wiped out because I don't think anybody would really want to go near the joint.
Well, I mean, okay, so yeah, we have the nuclear power plant, and then all of 50 miles up the road, there's Ogden and up in Morton, and that's another power plant. I mean, we do have. Okay, so let's say that each state has whatever they have, or each area has whatever they have, and they could quarter it off or cut it into pie pieces to literally make it so that there is a break point, because that's what you need, isn't it?
yeah, you would need.
Yeah.
You're talking about a new defense system against it running
Against the
rampant again?
CME, right?
Okay.
Right, so that you could say, okay, so if it went boom, because in all honesty, if it went boom and it hits New York, and it takes out New York, and it takes out, Maryland or whatever, it's going to roll and cause more effects.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to start to because when they're not using enough, then there's too much over here.
Right.
Right. So then the stuff starts blowing up on us.
All right, there's a ripple effect. If it's anywhere, it goes everywhere.
Right. So is there a way to, do you think it would be feasible to stop the ripple? Is it, because we can't go through and change everything. I mean, that would be a lifetime.
I mean, I think is it feasible? Probably, but I think probably the biggest thing that's going to stop it from happening is money. I mean,
But I would think that money, but in regards of how much it would cost, I think that putting a break point in these areas where, you know, this power plant has this much space that I don't know if they could lower the amount of, like they could feed it so they can go, oh my gosh, so we put break point here, we lower it to the amount that we just need. I don't know if that's even feasible.
Right.
But
I think part of the problem is that it's such a global hit you just took. You can't narrow it down to your block. I think it overwhelms the system all at once,
right,
and because of that, there is no break.
there's really no way to buffer it.
there's no way to buffer it.
Yeah.
It's not cost effective to buffer it. They're rolling the dice.
Well, they're rolling dice and I'm losing games though.
Yeah. But at the same time, they've got somebody's got a notebook somewhere in the
Yeah.
in the government. Yeah.
Someone somewhere.
Heaven forbid it's with FEMA. And yeah, and
Okay, so
Is it technologically possible? I just don't know. I mean, if you have a CME that's covering the Earth,
you got enough time, they could shut things down to protect it. But I don't think after the fact you stop it from perpetuating.
I don't know what that technology is. You need to have somebody who's highly specialized to answer that question. But
well, if you're highly specialized, I don't care when you see it.
let us know.
They're not going
Let's
to
see.
tell you because it's all top secret and it's come from area 51.2 or something.
51.2.
So,
That's the new improved 51. 51.2.
well, they said they moved. I heard somebody said they moved it. I don't know. I don't pay attention.
The only real practical way of we're under a lot of lead, but unfortunately, that requires a lot of money that I just don't think the government's willing to dish out just for a just in case that it hasn't happened since the Carrington event, really.
Yeah, I mean that's
In the grand scheme of things, Carrington is not that long ago.
No, it's not, but it is long ago comparatively speaking to the day and age of electricity and technology.
Right, which just makes it more and more terrifying.
Oh yeah.
So if there is not the technology to stop it, is it possible then to prepare to bring it back to life quickly?
Yeah, I
You know,
think
like you have all the spare parts laying around so that, it happened.
that would be
Okay.
cool, but they don't. Yeah, that would be smart.
It takes 6 months for the Siemens Corporation in Germany to make the transmission setup, transmission going up there, and then they've got to put that on a barge, and they've got to put it on a boat, and then they've got to halfway around the world to get into China.
Only this time
This'll
they'll be
take
doing
6
it
months.
without GPS.
We'd have to break out the old navigation maps.
Yes.
The slide rules.
We're gonna do it the hard way. That star. That's
Literally.
That makes me want to go invest in some paper maps.
you should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Always have paper
When I
maps.
first started driving a cab, I had to use one.
Yep.
You could radio dispatch and be like, "Where's this at?" And be like, "Get a map."
Yep.
You're off the grid.
mhm.
Okay, so I'm gonna say that this was kind of a quick. Unless you've got something in there in your notes, like
Nope.
some crazy hidden thing,
Nope, go for it.
just check in. Still throwing us off
There's
because
lots of craziness in here.
oh, good. Still throwing us off a bit because I think that we've agreed. I think it's a mishmash whether or not these third world countries would do better or worse because a lot of them do rely on us.
Mhm.
A lot of them do rely on aid. Of course, I threw out that crazy question of could we block it off? Could we possibly find some way to isolate ourselves? And none of us know because we're just not that person.
Hydro generators in the basement.
Hydro generators. Well, that's
Yeah.
yeah. I can hook my own house up.
You know, it's funny when you guys said that. I was thinking that, it's just rare for me, but I was thinking that what if, okay, so a nuclear explosion, it ripples out. Okay, what if it acts like water and you had like a clean air bomb that you could set off near you that would push the radiation and the cloud away from your location?
A clean air
I'm
bomb.
talking about like after it's blown up.
Yeah, it's exploded. You know it's coming. You set off the clean air
So
bomb.
you have a highly pressurized container of air.
Right.
That just
And it basically, yeah, in a radius, blows off.
so it's like
Radiation.
a compression grenade, a compression bomb.
Okay, if you guys know how to do this, let us know.
Problem is, you have to then push a column of air to the stratosphere. You know how heavy a
Yeah.
column of air is.
It'll buy you a couple
Cleaner
of seconds
bomb
of
would go
time.
off.
Right,
Like a dome.
but is that crap is in the atmosphere, and that atmosphere moves around the planet. The fallout's still gonna come.
Yeah.
It'll
The
buy you
fallout's
seconds
what's
of
going to
time.
kill you. Yeah.
Right, fallout's.
But the initial blast, you
The
may not
initial
have to worry
blast
about
is
it.
kind of like the Mythbusters did the guy who supposedly had fallen out of a B-24 Liberator over France. Plane got hit. He falls out, but just as he's falling from 10,000 feet, he's heading through to a railway terminal. It's covered in glass. It's a big old railway place, and somebody detonates a bomb inside the railway terminal, and that shockwave supposedly cushioned him enough that he survived from 10,000 feet.
I thought it was made of glass. Wouldn't it shred him?
It blew the glass out before he came through.
Oh.
Same kind of idea, but they never found the guy who actually supposedly.
Well, I mean, it's,
Yeah,
it's just an idea.
Talking about like during
It
the
might buy you
blast.
some time.
I think blowing,
Right.
like setting stuff on fire to eliminate the oxygen, stop the fire.
Yeah, fire break is nice.
That's what I think. I don't think, oh, good, clean air. I think, no air. No.
Sudden vacuum.
Right.
That would
if you-
create a
if there's
sudden
no
vacuum.
air and it's sucking in. Isn't that pulling it in faster?
Hold up. But if there's no air, if I can suck in the air, what if I can suck in the air over there to pull the clean air over to me?
I don't think that would work. Only because, I mean, you're sucking in the dirty air. Where are you getting the clean air?
No, well, because I mean, okay, so your
I've
mom
got
went.
Spaceballs in
through-
my head and the Big Maid. You know, sorry.
The vacuum. That's great.
Okay, so your mom went.
She's been set to blow.
So your bomb goes boom, right?
Mhm.
Goes boom, and then it mushrooms out. But it's not over here, right?
Okay.
So if I set off enough bombs,
Clean air.
just bombs,
Trying to
Just
push
bombs.
it the other
Just
way.
bombs.
right? What
Just bombs.
So non-nuclear bombs. I'm assuming.
non-nuclear bombs?
Clean air bomb.
Just bombs.
Okay,
From Moab.
Right.
Trying to like make the force
Right.
it this way.
right. I want to force it.
Versus
Like
over
a-
there.
like a-
What
clean air
I
bomb?
want to do, yeah, like a clean
Yeah,
air bomb.
Yeah.
Sure, we'll
Keeps-
call
he
it
keeps
that.
calling it a clean
But
air
if you-
bomb.
Like a shape
Sponsored
charge.
by Glade.
Yeah. Does it smell good too?
If there is a
Right.
No, it smells like poopery.
Okay, this way. I like this idea, but boy, we ran with that one.
Maybe instead of having that air freshener at our jobs, that they drop it in first,
Uh-huh.
it would just be clean air bombs.
I think that's fabulous.
Yeah. All right. Back on track. Sorry.
I liked it.
I was trying to think for a minute. See what happens. See what happens when I think. I'm stopping right now.
But could we use clean air bombs to push pollution to somebody else?
Right. To the,
Yeah.
to the
Right,
third
that's
world.
Maybe
not-
that's what we
yeah,
should
right.
do.
To the third world islands.
Yeah,
That's
because
right.
screw
Okay.
them.
No, I mean, I'm not talking like
Screw
I'm not talking like a huge bomb. I'm talking a bomb that's big enough to make your compound clear.
Right, that's what I'm saying. If I can pull,
Just
the-
your compound.
because if I'm making a big airspace, a big vacuum, right? Then the vacuum wants to suck air into it, right? It wants to suck stuff into it. Okay, so if I'm on the correct side of that bomb, I guess I'd have to actually do it on the other side. Meaning, okay, so
Yes, that would
right.
make sense.
right, so
Drawing it away from you.
right, I'm drawing it away. So let's say that boom, DC went up, right? And I go boom, and I blow up all of that part of the Eastern Shore of Maryland, part of New York,
And then pulled it that way.
and I pull it that way. I mean, sorry guys, but
I feel
it's
like
out to the ocean.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if something like
You
that
guys are
happens.
tricky.
Who cares about everybody else? You're worried about yourself.
So would it make more sense?
I'm
if-
sorry.
Well, I'm trying to
maybe-
take it to the water, so I don't know if that's good or bad.
Would it make more
But
sense? Maybe
You're
less
ruining the
lethal
fish.
for
We're not going
everybody
to
else.
scallops anymore.
If you just
Domes are not easy to come by.
You know, I don't think a big bomb the size of whatever to push the nuclear blast over there is any easier.
It's not easy to come
It
by
is.
either.
Look at the Boston Marathon. It's very easy. You
Okay,
just don't
I
put
need a-
shrapnel in it.
I need a
Yeah.
bigger bomb than that, though. If it's a
Why? I mean, maybe a
Yeah.
little bit bigger, but
okay, but we weren't even talking about nuclear bombs. How did this happen?
you don't have time to blast it.
We
That
went
was,
from
that was horrible.
That was
That was a horrible thing.
And it drove pieces of shrapnel and took people's legs off.
well,
It's
yes,
a pretty big blast.
but it's not going to combat a nuclear blast.
And in a situation like that, you don't give a shit about anybody else.
Well, I'm saying
There-
what he's saying is that the nuclear bomb, it's gonna take up what first it hits X amount of miles out, then it hits X amount of miles out. So
Right, but that
Agreed.
ripple's going to weaken as it goes. By the time it hits us, it may not be as strong.
Well, you
As
also
if
got
you were
to think
standing
that
next to it.
that ripple is really that gust of wind. If you will. Depending on how far it is, you're still getting clean air. It's really the fallout after the fact that's going to kill you. So, letting off whatever bomb you have to let off, first off, like he said, your bomb got to go to the stratosphere because all that radioactive ash is going up into the stratosphere. And that's the wind currents that are carrying. It's not the wind currents down on sea level or our level. It's the wind currents up there. So you can let off your bomb, and it's just going over top your bomb, going, I don't care, and it's going to drop right down on you. And then you're going to have to let off an assortment of bombs until it eventually goes away. At that point,
Right.
it's
The
just
ash travels a lot slower than the actual ripple. Ripple's gonna be the first thing.
Right,
You
you've got
watch
a
a
pressure
bomb
wave,
on
but
the ground.
what you're for one thing, you are missing even in the clean air bomb, which I still think is fantastic. Actually, is heat. Is heat.
Yeah.
You can't be anywhere near it when the sun gun goes off because you'll end up with a sunburn pretty quick if you haven't been blasted to pieces by its
Okay,
own
but
pressure.
you guys are
Right.
talking about setting off in New York and us
Right.
being where we're at.
Right.
Are we going to feel all the heat?
it depends on the size. Probably not. Probably not.
Right.
I mean, we might get a warm breeze.
So heat's
but,
not really.
but
an
in all
issue.
reality, if it's set off in New York and it's small enough, it's not going to affect
Oh,
us. What's going to affect us is what hits the atmosphere.
The ash that he's
the
speaking of.
yeah, the
definitely is
fear
gonna
factor of a
affect us.
nuclear bomb is nuclear fallout,
But
not the blast.
Did you ever watch the videos of the bombs hitting like Nagasaki? and
Absolutely.
stuff? Everything's just gone.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Right.
it was,
Okay,
and it
by
was
the time
above
the
ground.
ripple gets to us, if we can set off a clean air bomb.
Somebody's going to invent a clean
I mean,
air bomb.
I know it's all.
Maybe
Yeah, but-
several of
But
them.
somebody's going to
Lots
call
of
that. But somebody's actually going to call that a neutron bomb,
We're actually just like throwing out.
which
stuff
is a
anyway,
combination of
so
a fusion and a fission.
I don't think it's going to be feasible. No, I don't. But it's an
I
idea.
like
You
the
know.
idea, though.
Chop it up.
You don't know. They already found the God particle, so it could be feasible to find a clean air bomb.
Not any more far fetched than us actually surviving some shit like this.
Well, okay, I'm going to survive if it's not nuclear and if it's not a biological attack of something that I'm actually susceptible to. Other than that, yes, I am going to survive. If you turn my power off, I'm fine.
That's another thing we should do. We should do a chapter of why bother?
We're all gonna die anyway.
Well, I mean, no, but why bother? The way that the world is going to be, you're only going to want to be in your little contained
Well,
area.
yeah, but
Because
we've
that's
also
the world.
discussed how some people are. We've already done that with how some of the people are going to act.
Yeah, they're gonna jump out of buildings. It's gonna happen.
Right, you're right.
Yeah.
But I mean, the people who survive, what do they have to look forward to?
Mad Max, dude.
The Thunderdome.
Don't you want to live through that?
2 men in or
What if? Just what if this is the way that the steampunk era actually like comes into being?
I've never been in the steam.
God, that would
Well,
be
then you
so
just wanna
horrible.
die.
I'd rather go.
Oh.
I want the world to go on the
If
way.
steampunk was coming in, I want out.
You don't want to have like big, huge copper and
No.
bronze zeppelins flying through the air.
No.
That's gonna be fabulous.
I think it sounds kind of cool. I'm with you, man.
But what
Well, I think
Fritz Lang and Metropolis and whatever before he did cartoons.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, I mean, I think personally, the reason that
Big
people
goggles
would
and
want to
top
go
hats.
on is because we're people, and life finds a way.
Yeah, right.
So
right.
you
I'm
know,
just thinking quality of life. I mean, something like that happens. It's almost like you have cancer.
Do you think that in these third and second world countries that, and especially in countries that no longer are getting support from governments one way or the other, do you think that it is like just a matter of time before revolution takes place and all of the poor people just are so tired they're just like screw everything and they take over?
What, after or before?
But after,
I was going to say
I was
before,
gonna say
that's
before is probably
Yeah.
pretty feasible.
before is the reason for the aid to all the other groups
Yeah.
inside
That is
that
true.
that third world
Yeah.
country is to see who can supply the most people with the most interesting check.
Look at Syria.
Yeah,
There's
who
so
knows how many
different
groups are
factions.
involved?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
you do it every day.
you know the Sandinistas in Nicaragua during the 80s.
Yeah.
You know, all the lovely time that Reagan said, "I'm not sending anything to anybody." Bullshit. Ollie North, how you doing?
I would want to survive, and I would think that eventually life would get back to normal. I mean, just because we have to go back to living
Well-
like we did a couple hundred years ago, that didn't mean they had bad lives. It just
Nah.
they didn't.
Right, you have to
know better.
change your normal.
It's not
Yeah,
really a
our
couple
normal
hundred
would
years
just
ago.
change.
Right.
In a lot of ways, it was probably better.
Absolutely, no
Yeah.
GMO foods, man.
Right.
They're not killing you slowly.
I mean, you would have a very
With their
you would-
song.
You would have a mass amount of people dying left in that's for sure.
Yeah.
Because the overpopulation really is based off the fact that technological advancement to support life to live even longer. So you get a lot of people dying. There'd be a great downdraw of the human population.
But
no,
just
yeah,
the
I
sick
mean,
ones anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's as messed up as it may sound, you're actually right. It's just the sick ones anyway. They're gonna perish. You'll end up having a lot of farmland being the main economy. Would that be right?
Agrarian economy.
Yeah,
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 right.
So that's really
Everybody
what's
goes
gonna
back
fall
to bartering.
just like it was not even a couple hundreds of years ago. It was about 150 years ago. You know, when we were still using lantern light, there was no cars, there were horses, there was a lot of farmland. That's what it will just come back to. And in the United States, I think the United States, if we're going back to the solar flare, the nuclear thing happens, then I don't know.
Right.
But the solar flare taking out all the power and everything like that, the United States would prosper. Again, there'd be a lot of death, but the United States would prosper. They would survive. So would all these other countries that have that capability. But again, going back to the third world countries that don't have that capability, who can't farm, who do rely on countries like ours to do the farming for them and get their food to them, you'll see a lot of them just slip off to the wayside. They're not going to be surviving. As a matter of fact,
I think some
would
of them
dare
will.
say some of them maybe, but I dare say the vast majority of third world countries will actually perish. It's the first world countries that do have the preparedness and the financial backing that gave them that preparedness to continue on. We became a superpower, for example, for a reason. It wasn't just because we sprouted money on trees. We worked for it. In the grand scheme of
Right.
things.
Right.
So we do have a better leg up versus something like Nicaragua or really Mexico in general. Or
Yeah, but
Conversely,
yeah, I got
the third world countries are used to having nothing.
that's true. They are.
So they might be better off than we are in some ways.
In some
Also,
ways.
if you take away the aid that we're giving to Ethiopia, if you take away the aid that we're giving to Sudan, where things are bad or whatever, I don't know all the countries, but you take away that aid, what happens? They just start learning. They might die off, a lot of them, but they start learning how to fend for themselves.
I think they'll move because I mean, a lot of places they're in countries.
There will be a lot of
There
migrating.
would be a
Right.
mass migration.
There
That's
has to
it.
be.
They don't do it now because they have help. It's just like people that are on welfare. They're not, if they don't actually need welfare, but they're staying on it because it's easy. It's easy. I can stay on welfare and
Yeah.
not work, and but if the United States cut off the welfare, they go get a damn job because they have to survive.
That's true. I'm not saying they would all die entirely, but I do think that yes, there would be a mass exodus from the country.
That would be a good thing.
You see that with the Syrians right now and just war. But as far as the country as a whole, I think the country as a whole is just screwed. All these third world countries, they cannot support themselves. They're third world for a reason. They're not first. They don't have power. They're not first world countries. They're not second world countries. They're third world countries. They require help. If we didn't help them, or if the other nations didn't help them,
Now, is our help keeping them as a third world country?
it very well could be. That's true.
Is that part of the politics, the geopolitical
Yeah.
positioning that?
I would dare say so.
Yeah.
I would dare say so. Yeah.
I actually think that let's say that I'm in some place where I know that there's a group of natives and I can just go and ask for help. They're the ones that are, they're hunter-gatherer people because there's still hunter-gatherer people out there.
Just
Yeah.
don't go to that island off India.
The Aboriginals, they still keep with tradition as much as they
They
can.
don't want to talk to you at all.
I'd be like, excuse me,
Yeah.
I will help you if you will teach me your ways,
And then all of a sudden, poof,
then I might be their dinner. That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
But
I mean, have you seen
but you know what? Then I don't
Yeah.
have to worry about it because I tried.
the other
They
way,
ate me.
the other way.
Alex says they might not be nice.
Right? It might not be nice.
Yeah.
It might go all
It sounds like what
bring
everyone's
inferno
saying
on you.
is if there's a CME like that, and the power goes out, and there's a triple down effect. If you have the right culture, where you have I'm willing to work, and I'm willing to work hard, and I'm willing to share and help others, but no work, no food. But you also need a certain amount of natural resources to
Right.
work with.
Yeah.
So if you're in the middle of the desert on a horse with no name, it doesn't matter if you have great ethics and great work skills. You have nothing to work with.
Yeah, there's no
Right.
water, there's no water.
Right. If you're starving or if you're dying of thirst or you don't have shelter, certain things to work with, it'll be much more difficult.
Right.
But if you have the right combination of things, those places could survive and do well. Start over again.
So I guess
Um,
really,
Kind of like Mesopotamia.
really, there's no real balance in there's no balance in difference here. Meaning, there are things that are going to make either one bad. If you are in China, you are in a bad situation because there's too many of you
Mm.
and you're too close together. If you are in the United States, again, it's almost the same situation. There are too many and you're too close together. While you may have the ability to farm, you may have the ability to get your water and do this, you're also facing off with enemies every day, more or
Yes.
less.
Well,
Whether it's
yeah.
another person or it's a disease from a gross amount of people who have died in one section,
And that's the other thing, disease. Sickness is going to wipe out probably the vast majority of people for violence, I think, or even starvation, to be honest with you. I think sickness is going to wipe out the vast majority of people, especially people in big cities. Big cities would be the absolute worst place to be during an event like this. Say New York, for example. All it's going to take is one person to get carrier of one violent
And the infrastructure
disease.
will collapse.
Within 6 months, you'd see
Well-
half the city dead.
well, you think about those people who are going to lock themselves into their homes and die.
Yeah.
Well, they're just
Yeah.
a breeding ground for bacteria.
Mhm.
And next thing you know, the rats are in there eating them, the fleas are doing this, everything's moving around, and the rats don't stay in one room. So it's not even like, if nobody's getting rid of that,
Yeah.
then that's just a disease bomb.
Yeah,
if
I
you're
mean,
fortunate enough to be in the right size town, in the right location,
Right.
then you may not suffer as much. If you're unfortunate enough to be inside a subway tunnel when there's a flood,
Right.
you can only hold your breath for so long. You're in the wrong place at the wrong time. This may be very unfortunate for you. If you're in an airplane, maybe going down. But I think that people will survive, and I think that there will be a rebuilding phase, and it's just a matter of whether you're prepared and can get to where it's a good place.
Right. And I think that people would try. I think for the sole purpose of, life finds a way. And ultimately, there are going to be people who don't want to try. There are going to be people who are like, why should I do this? And they're going to use that one bullet to take care of themselves, or they're just going to go suffer somewhere, take a bunch of pills, whatever the case may be. But then there's a good sized group of people who are going to say, absolutely not, I have to rebuild something.
I'm gonna stick around and see what's up. I'm not saying I'm gonna die right away. I'm gonna stick around and see what's up. But I'm saying
I
the
mean, now
quality
that,
of life might be such that
well, the thing is what is your acceptable quality of life? I mean,
once my diabetes takes over my body, which it might
Well-
not, because I'm not gonna have a lot of sugar to eat.
right,
I'll be doing a lot of walking apparently.
Yeah.
right,
It may not, but high blood pressure, any diseases that people have, stuff like that, they're gonna get worse,
right.
and the quality of life is gonna suck for them.
Well, quality of life will change for everybody. I mean,
Right, but
air
more so,
conditioning, heating, we love our AC. You
Yeah.
guys love the AC.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But when there's no power, there's no AC. You can figure out how to heat stuff with a wood
That's the
stove
worst
or
thing you've
whatever.
said during this whole time.
I know.
when you dig a hole
Well-
deep enough, you get cold.
Oh, so now you want to die, huh?
No.
Oh, God. Oh, my
as
God.
as I've proven to myself, I mean, you can get used to a temperature.
Yeah, you
Well,
acclimatize.
But this all, I mean, if you think about it
It's
too,
always room temperature.
and we've gone back to, this goes back to probably another episode at one point, when we were talking about, do you stay or do you go? When this happens, do you stay in Minnesota right now, where it's very,
Yeah,
very
there
cold.
would be a mass exodus heading
Yeah.
south.
Oh,
And
yeah.
a lot of this is going. A lot of people are going to realize, just like they did for years, is that you no longer live in one place. You live in multiple places, depending on the times of the year. Can you grow and harvest in this location versus moving to this location where you can grow and harvest in a different season? And so temperature and climate and weather and all those things they're going to have to think about those things.
Right.
You're not going to be, AC, do you want to be in the middle of the desert with no AC,
Or
or
move north.
do you want to move north where it's cooler, for the summertime? So, people will just, in a lot of ways, just revert back to the way things used to be until they can tell that there's the ability to settle again, when they start figuring out that they can, how do we get the grid back up?
Okay,
How
it's
do we
getting
start
cold.
doing
Let's head to
things?
our summer camp.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, you also have people like that. What's that show where they live up in Alaska?
There's a lot of
Yeah, it's like
the
five
bush
of them.
people.
Oh, I don't
Last Frontier.
There's a whole bunch
Yeah,
of good ones, though.
but I mean, they have like their own little hovel, and they are able to do this and
Yeah.
do that. So those people would be like, to the rest of
Yeah.
us.
Well,
Yeah, but if they didn't have
But
modern
even-
machinery and
Right.
didn't have fuel supplies and this, that, and the other, they wouldn't be able to do it.
I will say,
Yeah.
Because when was the last time you saw an Inuit put down any kind of row of corn?
Well, not even
They
that.
ain't gonna do it.
The
Yeah.
supplies that they do get, if they're not able to grow them or maintain them or manufacture them themselves, they're flown in.
yeah.
Right, but once
I
upon
mean, they
a
get
time,
train
people,
loads of stuff all the
I hate
time
to
coming
say it,
through
but once
there.
upon a time, people lived there without that.
yeah, there was
Yeah.
a significant
Yeah, they did.
amount less than what's there now.
Right, but what I'm saying is there were.
Possible.
It's possible,
No, it is
and
possible.
there were
Yeah.
people. There has to be, some history of how they did things.
Yeah, huge supply chains.
Well, no, I'm talking before. I mean,
She's talking like when they came across Bering Strait.
Well,
Next time you watch one
Well,
of those
they didn't
shows,
stay.
think to yourself.
They kept coming.
Well, that's the
Yeah,
thing,
Because they'll be like, oh yeah, we're out here in the bush and we're living the hard life. Can you deliver some more goods to us tomorrow?
Exactly. I'll meet you at the train tracks.
Yeah, I mean, not to
Yeah.
mention if some of these people, let's take Alaska for example, or any of these northern states right now that are facing negative 55-degree temperatures, like towards Wyoming.
Yeah.
So let's say something like this happened in the night, and the heat goes out, and they're asleep. You think they're
wake up.
waking up in the morning?
Probably not.
Yeah.
depends on how much vodka they've had.
They ain't waking
No,
up in
no,
negative
no.
55.
No.
They ain't waking up. They're dead. That's going to be a whole state of dead people, right there. That's a whole state. So
Well,
yeah,
hopefully they've got some kind of. I mean, I would if I was going to live someplace like that. I've got alternative heat source. I've got a wood stove.
Well,
I've got
my
something.
sister-in-law and her husband, they live in Wyoming, and it gets cold where they are, so they have like kerosene heaters and things like that.
Right.
Wood
to get them
stoves,
through.
wood
Right.
Fireplaces, use the hell out of them
And-
because they're saving electric anyway.
and you would
Yeah.
still see them. I mean, you might see a couple of, you can see a good chunk of ones that will survive through a night. But eventually, they're going to start looking at their heat supply as crucial as their food supply. And,
Right.
Not only are we running out of this, we're running out of heat, and we have 3 nights before we got to get somewhere warmer.
Mhm.
And oh yeah, by the way, our car doesn't run, so we're gonna have to walk. So do you think we can survive 3 days and nights walking in negative 55 degrees? We have to find something to keep warm.
There's a lot of different preps. I guess you need to do for different areas.
Make a lot of people
Absolutely.
think.
Because
Yeah.
if I live in the desert, I live someplace where it's always hot. I probably have something the equivalent, or I would like to have something the equivalent of a root cellar. Because if you go under the ground,
57 degrees.
right,
Yeah.
right. I mean that's not a bad idea even where in the middle of the country, right where we're at, or just basically in that midline.
Right. I mean, even though where it's negative 55, you get people up the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. So I mean, something like that is relatively easy to accomplish. I mean, it takes time and effort, and it's something you want to do ahead of time. But I think that most people who even think about the fact that okay, I live in a tundra of some sort, they know that you can lose your power for this, you can lose your power for that, and it could be a week before you get it on. So I think that they're they're pretty well prepared, or they're dead already.
Yeah.
Or they're going to the neighbor's house. Like, well, we're gonna freeze to death if we stay here, Mabel. Let's go over to Fred's place. Okay, but Fred's gonna take them in because Mabel's hot or whatever. I don't know.
She makes good pie.
Mabel makes good pie, yes, and apparently pancakes. Mabel makes good pancakes too. That's what I hear.
Mabel makes good pancakes.
Or is that Maple?
That's maple.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's syrup. Goes on a lot of things.
Mm,
I think there's a lot of people who have already lived in those places. They know, like, there are people who have lived in Alaska for a long time, and minus 55 is something that they've seen in their
Yeah.
lifetime,
right.
and they realize, there are going to be those days. So when it's summer, you prepare. Exactly how they prepare, I don't know, but there are people who would get through that. I think that if there's a CME event, we are all trying to survive. We would just need to try and get to the right place at the right time, so that you avoid the masses of people, but you're not deserted. You're someplace where there is food, there are supplies,
Right.
there are friendly enough people who are like-minded. Because you could get someplace where they appear to be friendly, but
Your dinner.
you're just dinner.
Oh,
Yeah.
this is like a perfect segue into the next part of this whole thing, right? Because, like, do you have a group? Do you not have a group?
Right, right.
Yeah. Do you,
So, do you want to slip into that?
so that's a,
Slip in. We're gonna slip into part of episode of the
that's a
next
perfect
episode.
segue, Patrick.
So, assuming that you do have a plan, and have an assembled group, or you've been sucked into a group, right? That is somebody you trust or can trust. What's next? Do you set up a chain of command? When you do set that up, or if you do set that up, or you're just gonna go all willy-nilly, or do you already have one predetermined? And do you believe that you're better off with one head honcho or a committee to kind of make those decisions to help people, help your groups, maintain your group's well-being?
I think it's both and.
Yeah.
I think, you got to have someone, a dude, maybe it doesn't have to be a dude, but it has to be someone who is the ultimate, like, decision maker. But I don't think that you should have just this one guy making all decisions all by himself.
Because you get killed pretty quick if that's the case.
Right. Well, people are flawed. They're going to make mistakes. And so having a committee of people around him that can help him to make decisions, or help to make the decisions that he will enforce one way or the other, you got to do it that way. Because, like you said, I mean, at some point, if he makes enough mistakes, they're just going to take him out anyway and
Right.
replace him.
Right.
Or on top of that, if you don't have someone else, in a hierarchy of some kind, then when something happens to him that's unforeseen, maybe he gets mauled by a bear, I don't know, whatever, then somebody's got to take on take that role. I mean, you don't want to have somebody that's not ready to step into that place. It's already been part of this little small government that we're having.
Right.
Because if you don't have somebody to step right in, then you're going to have more chaos, and nobody needs that when there's already chaos all around you. So that's I think that would be a very important part, like after you've gotten your kit and your people and your supplies and all that kind of stuff, I think like right away you need to set that up.
Yeah. You got to set up a hierarchy. At first, it can't be complicated. It's got to be simple.
Yeah.
By having one person in charge who seems to know what they're doing. But then the fear is eventually that person's going to start making mistakes or getting power hungry.
Mm-hmm.
So
Because power corrupts
Well,
every single time.
I
a
think
wise
that-
leader would set up quickly an infrastructure and a system to have a continual replacing and check and balances.
I think that if you already got a plan and you've already got a group, that you should already have that set up. You should already just have determined, okay, this is the leader,
Mhm.
and these are the leader's advisors.
Yeah,
You
I mean,
know.
it should be part of your prepping. I mean,
Right,
if you already have a group of people that you're counting on in case this happens,
right.
it's totally different if you get
If
sucked
you
up
just
into
got
a
sucked
group,
into one.
or if you get, if you're 5-6 people that are all alone, you have to form a group.
Okay,
that's
so let's
different.
just say that happens. So you get sucked into a group, and nobody's really, they're just kind of doing their thing. Nobody's really the leader.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't know them well enough to take charge.
Yeah,
Would you stay with that group, or would you go try to find something else? Or
I think. Well, I mean,
I guess there's so many different scenarios that could.
Well,
be
this kind
the
of brings
way
up
out.
this. You could also bring up now. We can talk about the lone wolves. You know, it's like, are you going to have the lone wolf mentality that you're only, first of all, you're by yourself, no matter where you are, whether you're with people or not, because that's the mentality of a lone wolf. I'm going to be me. I mean, it's an oxymoron anyway. A lone wolf is kind of a thing because wolves are packs. So you're supposed to be
Right.
with the pack. So the whole idea is kind of weird anyway, but ultimately, I think that if that's the mentality that you have, you're probably not going to survive long anyway, because you can't survive on your own. You can for a while, but I mean, at some point, you're going to have to integrate back into some sort of society. Then on the other hand, if you go into a group and you never really become part of the group, then you're going to get eaten up by everything that's going on around you. I don't think that you can survive in a place like that. So I think the smart thing to do would be to, you know, if you find yourself in a lone wolf situation and you come upon a group, you know, try to see how things work. I mean, it may not be the group for you.
Right.
I mean, you know, like if you're not the type that is going to rape and pillage, then you probably don't want to be part of that group.
Right.
But,
Yeah. No.
you know, you may have to hang out with that group for a little bit
I don't
until
think I
you can
would.
get to where
I
you need
think
to
that
go.
if I realized you're a rape and pillage group, I think I'd be dipping real
Yeah,
quick.
you
I
gotta
don't
be,
think
but you got to be careful though too, because how do you dip without them?
raping and pillaging.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you
I
can't just.
think that at that point, if you're that questionable about somebody that, I mean, because you can last a certain amount of time as a lone wolf.
Oh yeah.
Right. You know, you
Right.
could go and do that kind of thing. I think that if I saw a group, I would have to stalk them.
That's probably smart. Yes.
Right. I have to kind
You
of
have to
stay
scout
at the,
them. You scout them.
scout them.
Find out what they are about.
Right. And so if I unwittingly, like let's say they were all being good and kind until suddenly I'm there for 3 days and they're like, hey, check that place out. Let's go and rape and pillage.
Yeah.
We're gonna rape the town and pillage the women. And it's then
I don't think that's how this works.
that's not how this works.
So
That's
how
not how any of
it works. Yeah.
But you know, if that's the point, if it's at that point, then unfortunately, I'd have to let them do what they were gonna do because I can't stop a group all by my onesies. But
I mean,
but
honestly,
I
that's-
dip. I figure
Yeah.
out how to dip.
That's kind of how, you know, we got started. We got people came here, and this is a great place. And then a lot of people throughout the world were like, things kind of suck where I'm at. I don't know if I can go with this. I don't know if I go with that. Let's find a new place that's more like us. And they
Yeah.
get on a boat and they came here, and you know, they became part of us.
Right.
And I think to a smaller degree, we would all kind of do that. We would find a group that is us. If the group starts to stray from where your morals, your values are, and you're like, time to go check out the next town.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
Well,
Yeah.
I think you. I
hopefully
think
you can do that without too much strife.
Right,
Yeah.
because there's going to be a gang mentality of once you're in,
Who is
Yeah.
who is us?
Right.
Yeah,
you
there's
don't take
Well,
our
because-
knowledge with you, you don't take our secrets with you.
Yeah. Well, it's also people are a resource. So I mean, if you've got a group of 10 people and one of them dips out, now you're in the single digits.
10% less.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, that's not great. So that's one less person to do whatever needs to be done, you know. So yeah, they look at it that way as well. People are resources, the way it is. So, but let's think in a more like positive way. Like, let's say you got some good groups of people and nobody's raping and pillaging and all that kind of stuff. I mean, what is a good way to run that group?
right. Well, I mean, I'm a big fan of committees. I do understand there needs to be a head to the committee.
Right.
You know, but if I'm sitting here and I know the property really well and I know what I have and I know this and I know that, but you know that you're out there dealing with these people and you know that we need to create, we need to fill a void for a particular need that I don't necessarily get. And you know that there is another resource that we could get to, and I don't know about that resource. Well, all by my onesies, knowing everything about the particular property, I can't provide as well as I could if you're coming and saying, look, this is a need that needs to be met. Oh, okay. So how do we meet that? I don't know. And then he shows up and says, this is how we meet it. Now we have to find out. Okay, so we have to figure out how to make this happen.
Right.
So it's way better in regards of, as far as I'm concerned, to go, okay, it's a committee. Now, I can see that it might be okay to say, well, because you built this, whatever, you already had this part. Now you get to go tell them that we're doing this. You
Mhm.
know, I can see that, but I also think that you need to always be involved with the people you're trying to assist. It's kind of like,
Well, I mean, that's what a good leader does. I mean, a good leader is someone who is not someone who just, it's my idea, it's my way, we're doing it this way, no matter what.
right,
A good leader takes because people are a resource, they take, and everybody has their own visions and they have their own abilities and they have their own ideas, that
right,
all of those things need to come together in order for a community to work together. So a good leader is not necessarily someone who always makes the decisions. He's the one who enforces the decisions that have been made.
right,
So if the committee has come together and said, we're going to do it this way, then he's the guy that makes sure that it gets done that way.
right.
So I think that that's really probably, I mean, in my opinion, I think that would be the best way to run. I think it's kind of I
Like
mean,
kind of grassroots, but I do think
Yeah.
at that point you do need, okay, so he's the one that enforces it. He or she is the one that enforces it. But that's not necessarily going to be the case, because let's say that you have a group of 50 people and 5 of them want to revolt. So they're running, they're doing this, they're doing that,
mhm.
and they're trying to steal from the rest of them, because I can see that happening.
Yeah.
Sure.
Mhm.
Now you need a security force.
Well, yeah.
So inside those 50 people, you're going to need 5 or 10 of them to be your security force. And probably part of those people are on that committee.
Yeah. You also got to hope that they're not the ones trying to take all your shit.
Yeah, well, then you sneak into their tent in the middle of the night and take care of that.
Yeah.
Feed them extra special pancakes with maple syrup.
With maple, with maple syrup.
Oh no.
Mabel, did you make that syrup again?
Terrible. Maple.
We need another batch of the syrup.
The syrup.
Yeah.
I think there's all kinds of leadership issues, and sometimes you're going to need a military general, and other times you're going to need somebody who is, kumbaya.
Yeah.
It's all just come together. That's the art, the skill of finding the right person at the right time,
Right.
and how you can go back and forth. I think you always have to be worried about the mob mentality where 51% says we all vote to take your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That can be a scary thing. So it can't just be, let's put it all up to vote, because
Right. You need a core. You
thing.
need a core group.
You need
A core group of leaders.
Yeah, you need a group of leaders that gets rotated often, but leadership and involvement from everyone.
Right.
Mhm.
And you definitely need somebody who's out there in the little community, finding out everything. Well, I think everybody should be.
Everyone should feel that we're all vested in sticking this out together.
Right.
And that kind of mentality, because once you start getting groups of people that are like, hey, we're going to go it on our own, we're going to take so-and-so's stuff and share it amongst us. That's a slippery hill.
Yes, that's a
Slippery
slippery, hideous slip. Okay, so we managed to kill the hour, kids. Yeah.
Slippery.
Once you guys get going, it's not hard. I mean,
Right. Well, we could keep going. I'm like,
I know.
"Ah,
It
let's
starts
slow
off
down."
really slow though, and then you guys pick up speed
Yeah,
as you go.
yeah.
Well,
And you get
'cause
louder too. I love it.
now I'm wondering if Mabel's syrup is sticky enough to keep you from sliding down the slope.
It could be, but it's also poison.
It's a vomit.
Wait, no, it's Mabel.
It's
Mabel.
maple syrup.
Maple syrup.
There's maple syrup,
That's
and
good.
then there's maple syrup.
And
And you do not want maple syrup on your flapjacks.
stay away from the maple.
There's a joke there I don't get, right?
Just the idea that Mabel is making syrup bothers me.
Okay, so
Her pie's okay though.
we've totally
Not
eaten
syrup.
up episode 5 and 6 in this one.
Oh, we did?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, sweet.
We did. So we're going to move on to 7 in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
In 2 weeks, and this is a tricky one. Okay. If at all possible, would you help outsiders who needed food, water, and supplies? Don't answer it yet. If you don't know them. What if they said they wanted to join your group?
Can
How
they
might-
dance? Because
Yeah.
at some point we're going to need entertainment.
Maybe. How would you vet such a person? Well, that's obviously answered now. Chris just wants to know if they can dance. Oh God.
I'm sure there are more serious reasons to ask that
Now,
question.
This is important, and I want everybody to really think about this, because to me, this is a tough one. You have a problem killing another human being if you thought they were a threat to your supply. What if it was someone you knew, not an enemy, but maybe someone that you knew to be the type of person who has an excuse for everything, who is generally self-centered and lazy, but not unkind, or someone who is amazingly dependent on others, though they're able-bodied. Could you actually kill such a person if they just wouldn't go away? If not, how would you deal with them?
I'm
Okay,
having a
so
hard
that
time.
is don't answer it now.
I'm keeping my mouth shut.
Right,
Tough.
right. That is food for thought. That is 2 weeks from now. In the meantime, be safe.
How many more
Everybody-
episodes do we have left?
Okay, wait a minute.
Because now
Don't
we've
be
sucked,
safe yet.
we've sucked up 2, so
Right, we
we're
sucked
on
up
7.
2. So we were on 7. So we have 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12.
All right,
And then it's back to break channel 13 and Jack and Miller.
Jack and Miller.
Yeah, well,
Jack and Miller.
Why need
That's
that?
it. Jack and Miller, the only 2 important people. In this
No.
show.
No, man, Max is going to totally
Max-
come out this
Max
season.
is
It's
Oh,
gonna be
coming
we're
amazing.
talking about Max.
Well,
The
he's
evil guy,
he's the
man.
killer.
he's the bad guy.
It's awesome.
Why do we got to give him any kind of whatever?
The bad
For the
guy
people
might
who
be
enjoy the
awesome,
bad
but
guys. There's a lot of us that
Yeah.
enjoy the villains.
I know, I do.
Dennis is awesome.
I know.
This is my ex.
I do like the villains.
Oh, is that right? Okay,
yeah.
say bye.
Huh?
Okay. Have a
Oh,
great.
she's entertaining
Two
because
weeks.
she wants to join the
Everybody-
group.
Now you want to join the group.
I'm
Thank you for joining us. See you
We're
in
done.
2 weeks. Could you kill somebody?
Toodles.
Bye.